Hey, how is everyone? Can everyone hear me okay? Hey, Jen, yep. Thank you. Hopefully, and it's so great to see so many familiar faces on the Zoom. First and foremost, just thank you, Jennifer, and to the rest of the broader Quilt organization and RFP team for allowing Zayo to be part of this really important CIS 2018 contract. Just working with Jen and Jennifer, Sharon, and the rest of the team over the last several months, just in preparation for today, really has been just a tremendous experience. I like to think of it as we play in the same sandbox, maybe with different toys at different times. However, there is, again, just a greater good and goal that we're all trying to achieve. And so many of you just put so much energy and time and effort and expertise, not only in your day job, but being involved in the multiple communities. So I just can't thank you enough. Again, moving forward, I want to thank Caroline, who will be our Zayo Quilt liaison moving forward. As a supplier, we feel that, again, we wanted to make this particular session as productive and as collaborative as possible. So we took the liberty with just starting off with introducing the team, sharing a bit about who we are, what we do, moving forward into our CIS strategy, and that will leave plenty of time for some Q&A and open discussion at the end. So with that being said, just moving into slide 3, you may have seen some of these team members before just out and about in the industry, maybe through your local teams or maybe an industry conference, most recently Global Summit this past May. Aside from global, your local account team representation, we absolutely plan to be part of the relevant ecosystems that you guys may be a part of day in and day out, and that includes Tech Exchange later in October, certainly SC18 in Dallas, and thankfully and graciously, we've been invited to the Quilt member meeting in La Jolla the second week of February. So absolutely, I think there's plenty of opportunity to shake hands along the way. We want to continue the engagement in person and virtual when appropriate. However, some of the folks that you'll have met and that are represented on the slide come from legacy companies. Maybe those are companies that we've acquired over the past 11 years. Many of you may know Brad Kilby, who is our executive sponsor, and he was brought on board to Zayo last year specifically to help build our research and education focus, hence why we're on this webinar today. And certainly throughout our presentation, you'll hear from Dave Cohen, who is our Director of Engineering, and Mary Hamilton, who runs our CIS product. Moving forward into slide 4, it's really just an illustration of our focus within the vertical. Being based here in the Washington, D.C. area, I have the great fortune, again, of not only working with some of the universities and Ron's, I see Norwin on the webinar. Hey, Norwin, how are you? But certainly how that ties into some of the federal research that we have the privilege of having here in our nation's capital, and that might be NIH, NOAA, or NIST. Moving forward into slide 5 are some of the educational solutions that we try to work with you together. At the end of the day, fiber is really the core or the crux that enables the wide breadth of what we offer day in and day out, most certainly including CIS. Dark fiber is something that we offer nationally. We'll share a map with you on that, and Dave will get into some of the broader capabilities. But whether it's core fiber or lit or managed services, certainly dedicated internet access, leveraging our global IP backbone with the dense footprint is exactly why we chose to pursue the CIS contract, and Mary will share some of the strategy and approach with that as well. For those of you that may have known Zayo, just moving into slide 6, or may have not heard much about us most recently, we were founded in 2007, and really just this illustration just provides a quick snapshot of our assets, just where we focus in specific verticals, and our revenues. 2014 was a pivotal time where we were awarded a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, and now just being a global company with fiber miles that expand to multiple institutions around the world is something that's really exciting. It took a bit to develop that. And then I'll move into slide 7, which really, again, is just a demonstration of the acquisitions over those 11 years. So I think this says that, hey, our M&A group is pretty busy and they're probably pretty tired. But our overall approach to this is that we'll hold true to our strategy of growing organically and building specific applications per customer demand. M&A is something that we don't anticipate slowing down anytime soon. However, just given these broad sets of assets and appetite to build and customize using financial resources and just leveraging some of the professionals that we have in place, we feel that we're very much ingrained in what we can hopefully, again, work together. Slide 8 is just a quick snapshot of our global footprint as well. So the world is getting smaller, and again, the bandwidth is a critical piece of that. And certainly, we're only seeing just increased demand for DIA service. When we look at our internal, readouts, everything is just moving up and to the right, and performance is critical. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it over to Dave Cohen to talk about our capabilities.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Eric, and welcome everybody. Actually, if you want to go back a slide really quickly, so something that I want to emphasize here, we're going to focus on our capabilities relative to the public internet. But one thing that I want to emphasize again about the way we've constructed our network, not only are we fiber focused from a network perspective, right? If you look at those stats, that's all well and good, but as a customer or a potential customer of Zayo, how do you go about relating that back to what our value proposition is? The reality is that we're leveraging that fiber footprint to serve our customers. We're not leveraging that fiber footprint solely to build up our own network capacity, right? We're using it for that purpose as well. When we start turning up 100 gig backbone links and exhausting capacity on DWDM systems to then turn up additional systems, so on and so forth. But we're using the density, particularly within the metro, also in the long haul as well, to be able to then take that core capacity and distribute that in an unfettered, unlimited type of fashion out to our customers. So, when we look at the highest bandwidth speeds, particularly our ability to serve 100 gig ports, our fiber footprint is what allows us to then take that 100 gig, 10 gig, 1 gig port from our core and distribute that without any constraints within the metro out to where our end users actually sit. So if we want to move forward a little bit to focus specifically on what our product portfolio is, and to touch on what I just said, we leverage that fiber across all of our connectivity infrastructure services. So it says on this slide, and I think it's important to emphasize that we're the largest independent provider of dark fiber. When we say that, we mean that we're not owned by an incumbent. We're not part of AT&T, Verizon, or CenturyLink. So that gives us the ability to look at our product portfolio in an unrestricted, untariffed way. We're not a CLAC in behavior either. We really are a fiber provider at heart. We sell dark fiber. We sell dark fiber regardless of who you are, whether it's the only service or one of 50 or 500 services you have with us. And that's a unique play in today's telecom environment. But as I said, we leverage that dark fiber footprint for lit services as well. We provide DWDM both in the metro and in the long haul, internationally as well. And one element that's unique about that product portfolio is that we build and manage private DWDM networks across dedicated dark fiber. We actually do that for layer 2 and layer 3 as well, where it's warranted. And we do have a strong layer 2 Ethernet footprint that's fairly conjoined with our public internet footprint globally, and we'll dive in on what that network and product portfolio looks like in a minute. On top of that particular service, we also have a DDoS offering as an add-on, and we're also growing our portfolio from a security perspective to look at encryption as a service. We're doing that today for a number of customers on layer 1 and looking at how do we extend that into the layer 2 portfolio. In addition to the connectivity portion of our product portfolio, we're also one of the 5 largest data center providers in the United States, and that's in terms of sellable square footage. We have 43 data centers globally today that's spread out through the United States, Canada, and a couple of locations in the UK and EU. On top of the data centers that we own, we also look at the ecosystem's connectivity and understand that that really revolves around the data center nominally. So we've got roughly 1,100 on-net third-party data centers. That excludes private single-tenant operated data centers. But we're talking about the carrier hotel environments, the Equinexes, Telexes, Savises of the world, and understanding that that's the bulk of where the connectivity play is in the vast majority of customer ecosystems that are out there. We operate our facilities as carrier neutral with respect to our ability to play across that entire ecosystem, and we're robust in kind of the tier 3, tier 4 space. We actually, it says that that's underway, but we actually just achieved FSMA moderate certifications on 8 of our most critical data centers that came in back in April, and we're targeting the end of the year to have the remainder of our tier 3 or tier 4 caliber facilities certified as FSMA moderate or FSMA high by the end of this calendar year. On top of that, we operate Zayo Cloud. Its sweet spot is private infrastructure as a service, so standing up typically dedicated compute and storage infrastructure for an always-on type of production, or sometimes an always-on type of DR or active compute environment. Many layers of security around that. And then we also have breakaway products that are focused within the same portions of that ecosystem, object-based storage being one of them, DR as a service where we do replication at a VM level as well. The focus there, and really what binds all of these items in the portfolio together, is the focus on infrastructure, away from the traditional managed service where we're looking at devices, looking at configurations. It's about providing the asset to enable our customers to focus on the service level, focus on what they do best, and where we can behave almost as a construction company in a certain way, almost as a hardware provider in a certain way, but then provide that element as a service and let our customers layer on the fancy, innovative stuff on top of that. And in addition, if we want to bump forward, thank you. In addition to the, sorry, back to the remainder tab on that slide. Thank you. The tie-in with the Zayo Cloud is that as a part of our connectivity portfolio, we've invested a lot in partnerships with other cloud service providers. So similarly to how we act neutrally in the data center business, we act neutrally in the cloud business as well, and understand many folks, particularly in the public sector, that are in cloud environments, are working with Amazon and Microsoft Azure specifically, as they have dedicated government-focused products. But then also the Google's legacy soft layers of the world, VM Cloud, Salesforce, those types of organizations, and established critical partnerships with all of those so that we can provide dedicated layer 2 or layer 3, and sometimes even layer 1, layer 0 type connectivity as direct connect into those cloud environments, so that traffic that's becoming increasingly critical in nature and requiring increasingly higher degrees of scrutiny on security and propriety as that data migrates into the cloud. We've invested in ensuring that there are options for our customers outside of letting that data traverse the public internet, and really rounding out our connectivity ecosystem in a way that we think really recognizes where the biggest growth in connectivity is going to be as more and more workloads migrate into cloud environments. So now we can push forward. Thank you. Onto focusing specifically on our IP infrastructure. A bullet point that I want to note on here, in terms of the growth of our peering, we've been rated by Dyn Renesas as the second fastest growing peered network in North America, the third fastest growing peered network in the world, and that's both rating the continuing increase of our peering capacity as well as total backbone capacity. In aggregate, the most recent ratings have had us as the second most peered network in North America and the fifth most peered network in aggregate globally. And you'll see where we're limited globally is our focus in EU, starting to see some focus in APAC. We show Singapore here. We've actually added recently a couple of pops in Hong Kong and Tokyo as well, starting to get entrenched in some of those markets. But then there's still some areas globally that we have yet to get entrenched in geographically. Our core, and obviously as significant to the Quilt members, is particularly within North America. So we've identified our core pops on this slide. And really, this is focused on a market level, but where we have peering, where we have network pops that have 100 gig capability. And when we say that, we will offer 100 gig ports. We'll offer 40 gig ports as well, but we're seeing based on an economic standpoint that 100 gig is making more and more sense at that higher realm of bandwidth from a physical port infrastructure perspective. And we have the backbone capacity that we're using, leveraging our own long-haul DWDM network to be able to support that capacity at 100 gig and future 400 gig wavelength level, to support the network in a way that our IP offering is not oversubscribed in the core. So what that means is we're giving our customers a dedicated port, whether that's at a giggy, 10 gig, 100 gig level. We're providing the port commitment is really just a contractual objective based on what customers think they're going to be utilizing. By default, all of our services are burstable unless we're told otherwise by the customer that you would like for us to rate limit that port. But by default, we don't. And if we need to extend from our facility to our end user's facility where we may not have IP gear on site, we'll use a dedicated fiber tail in order to provide that extension and do so in a manner that is both dedicated and not restrictive to the port capacity of the service that we're providing. At a very high level, we have about 3 terabits of backbone traffic today. That's growing at a fairly steady rate. At the beginning of 2017, so roughly a year and a half ago, our version of the slide back then was noting about 1.5 terabits of backbone traffic. So you can see how quickly that's growing and how quickly we're being responsive to that degree of growth. We're constantly turning up capacity. And as that evolves, we also need to continually turn up peering capacity as well to ensure that destinations that might be on our network, might not be on our network, but need to ensure resiliency and stability across that entire ecosystem. We have today roughly 7.5 terabits of peering capacity, and depending on the specifics in a given quarter, we're turning up between 500 gig and a terabit of additional new peering capacity each quarter in a variety of markets. As we continue to monitor where our utilization across those peering links exists. The offering that we have, I think, is geared towards that kind of what I would call wholesale type utilization, but really it's demonstrative of the size of the IP customers that work with us, the amount of traffic that rolls across our network, and our ability to provide unfettered, unrestricted, high bandwidth solutions from giggy all the way up to 100 gig.
Are we in my office?
Moving quickly to the next slide. I think in kind of prior lives, we might have referred to our network as tier 1. I know that term has fallen out of favor substantially in the industry. But if we look at it as meaning that we're not paying for transit, we don't have an upstream provider, we don't have settlement agreements across our network, all of that's broadly true. We are a tier one. We do not have any settlement or pay for peering agreements. We don't take transit from other providers. On our core AS, which is 6461, we have peering with about 220 partners. Some of that's public, some of that's private peering. And you see the largest peering providers indicated on this slide. And the reality is that we think that our performance into the most critical internet destinations is as good as any other network available, given the amount of peering that we have, the amount of locations and sessions that we have of peering, and our ability to very quickly egress from our network, given the amount of backbone capacity that we have. One other thing that I would add that's not noted in this deck, but I think is relevant as public internet utilization continues to evolve, is that we operate IPv4 and IPv6 at all of our POP locations, and that's without regard for what our customers want to do. So in other words, we don't charge extra for going V6. We don't charge extra for going V4. We set up our configurations based on what our customers want. If you were to take service from us, part of the process is effectively completing a form where you dictate to us, static routing versus BGP. If BGP, tell us, what kind of routing tables you want set up, what are we advertising, and it's really geared around flexibility for what our customers want to do, and allowing them the flexibility through the NCC to then be able to change that profile down the road as needs change and evolve. But we feel that offering is built towards really the next generation of internet utilization as more and more applications and more destinations migrate to having IPv6 capability. We're fully prepared and have been since actually about 2011 to be able to manage that workload. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mary Hamilton, who's going to speak a little bit more resolutely about, from a business perspective, the value propositions of our internet offering.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. So I'm Mary. I'm a product manager at Zayo on the DIA team, which is Dedicated Internet Access. So Zayo's DIA is a continuous high bandwidth way for you to connect to the internet. And this is a dedicated service to you. You're not sharing the access with any other enterprise. And our DIA has 4 key differentiators. So one, as Dave spoke about, we are a tier 1 provider, so the same playing field as level 3, CenturyLink, AT&T, Verizon. Number 2, we can provide aggregated bandwidth, so across several locations. Number 3, all of our DIA is fully symmetrical, so the upstream bandwidth is exactly the same as the downstream bandwidth. Number 4, we don't overutilize our network, so we augment at 50% utilization. And additionally to those 4 factors, we are the second most commonly used network in North America, and in general, all of these things result in lower latency and faster access to the internet with the fewest number of network hops. So this greatly enhances the speed and your overall internet connection. Next slide. Okay, this map, the white lines show the internet connection between cities and Zayo's network, and they mostly represent multiple 100 gig connections. So we have a geographically diverse DIA network and a robust bandwidth backbone. Next slide. So one of the greatest assets to our DIA product is the scalability. We can make your service burstable. We can add DDoS mitigation. We can add IP addresses. So as Dave mentioned, our DIA supports both IPv4 and IPv6 IP blocks. We can add BGP routing, and all of these things allow you to reach your key destination with minimal hops and delays. We can grow your network from 100 or 10 meg to 100 gig, and we can easily connect locations across our fiber backbone. And I think that's it for DIA.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave and Mary. I just wanted to open it up to any questions or comments.
Hi, Eric. This is Jen. Thanks so much to all of you for the presentation this morning. I'll jump in with a question. Can you speak to how Zayo is set up in the field in terms of account support at the national level for the Quilt CIS program from Zayo? You know, contact points, the such?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and that's a fantastic question. The good news is that everyone on this call and within the broader community is managed under Brad Kilby in terms of a vertical. We've mapped out all of the current 38 members to the related account teams, and we can, again, send that back out to yourself, Jen and Jennifer. A lot of that engagement will be more regionalized in nature, and from what I've seen nationally, most of those relationships are existing and in place. The impetus to create that structure is one of control and to make sure that we maintain the intimacy that's required just to be responsible and to ensure that we're executing in the right manner, particularly in related to the Quilt program. Hopefully that addresses your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great. And we really hope, again, just from the sense of this, we really hope that we run into each other, you know, quite a bit, and that there is continuity in that engagement. And that's why I took the liberty of just very high level outlining some of the bigger national type conferences for later this year. Certainly there are local conferences that are happening throughout, and Dave and Brad, and depending upon the theme of that, you may see Mary out there as well. Christina will be managing this sector from a marketing perspective, and she's done a phenomenal job in just helping put today's session together. So grateful for that. And we also have Karen English on the phone as well, who's our dedicated client service manager. So again, she's provided extraordinary feedback and just how to make sure that we again track everything in the right way, and to ensure that again we're meeting our obligations in terms of the program itself. So really, really excited. We all know that this is you know, one degree of separation of everything. We'll run into each other in so many different forms and fashion, and we just want to just encourage that in the right way as well.
So if folks have questions, feel free to unmute or use the chat window, whichever is easier for you guys.
Jennifer, there'll also be a recorded session to go back to this. Is that correct?
Yes, this session has been recorded, so we'll post that up on the Quilt site. Once we pull it down, there'll be a link.
Okay, fantastic. We know that this is a, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I've got another question for you, Eric, if you don't mind. It was around your DDoS solutions. If you might be able to dive in a little more into what type of DDoS mitigation comes with CIS services, and you know, a little more detail of what additionally is available.
Yep. Yeah, sure, Jen. This is Dave Cohen. I can speak to that.
Okay.
So by default, we have kind of the old I would say imprecise solutions available. Things like using communities to effectively allow routes or subnets to disappear, null routing or black holing, kind of in an emergency last resort sort of situation, we would do through the NCC. And again, we're recognizing that those are sort of imprecise solutions. As an add-on, a solution that leverages Radware platform that does much more precise scrubbing. And it is not included in the base rate, but obviously we would extend the appropriate offers to any customers interested in doing that. With us, we are priced based on a clean traffic requirement, not based on attack size, which is we believe is a little bit of a unique offer in the market. We have terabit level scrubbing centers in diverse geographies in the U.S. and Canada to kind of enable as best performance as possible on return of clean traffic. And obviously work through a couple of methodologies to enable both how we scan and are configured to allow either subnets based on BGP or addresses based on DNS to be folded into our scrubbing centers, and then returning that clean traffic via typically GRE tunnel, but again, have some flexibility around that based on how folks are configured on their edge. One thing that is important to note is that our scrubbing solution only covers IP traffic for connections that are Zayo provided. So we currently are not providing our mitigation solution for services provided by other IP providers. We're looking at the extending our abilities into that realm on the roadmap, but not currently available.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Well, we certainly appreciate everyone's just time, participation, and energy today. We know that again, just through some personal holidays and just everything that needs to happen during the lull of the summer in anticipation for the fall. So any of our contact information will be made available, certainly reaching out through Jennifer and team. Jen, I'll follow up appropriately as instructed, just regarding the specific account ownership among the community members itself. And we look forward to shaking hands soon.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, you guys. We really appreciate everyone's time on this call. And if you do have any questions, if you come up with anything, please feel free to send me an email, and I can get that over to the Zayo team. So.
And we're really excited to have you as part of the program. So
yeah.
Thanks for the webinar today.
No, we couldn't be more thrilled. So thank you again, all. All right. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care.
All right. Thanks.